Porn photographers. What is the most awkward moment you had? What do you feel when you film? How is your job generally? Not photographer here, but cinematographer. When I was at the beginning of my career, I accepted a proposal to work on a hard movie. After the second day of filming, the director approached me and told me, "It's clear you are a good cinematographer. I love how you manage the skin tones and mood. Just one thing. In this industry, it's not only the face that we want lit correctly. It's the nutsack, right? You know, the close-up on the guy's ass and balls that always pops up right as you come? That." When I was 22, I was asked by a friend of mine to record he and his wife have sex. He said it didn't have to be weird because they weren't looking for a threesome or anything like that. I agreed because it sounded interesting. But the sex they had was extremely rough and unexpected. At one point he started crying while she was doing a certain something to his backside while wearing a large attachment, and I asked if he was alright, which caused him to get pissed and yell at me for interrupting them. I stayed quiet after that and kept recording when he was able to get back in the mood. After they were done, he left the room and his wife asked me to never to bring up him crying to him because he was sensitive about it. I of course agreed, and she hugged me, then kissed me on my cheek, which I really didn't like because she was still naked and covered in sweat, and I just watched her eat his butt not more than 15 minutes prior. This right here is why I come to Reddit. I was in AA when I was 19 and I learned that my then sponsor directed porn. Being an ambitious young man, I inquired about any job openings as an actor. He just shook his head and said, "You don't actually want to do porn. It smells bad." I saw a comment somewhere, somewhen, that described the smell of a porn set as a combination of lube, ass and sadness. Yet I remember that comment too. Because of all the enemas in the trash cans in the dressing room. Gross. So in college I helped shoot and edit a couple porn videos for rent money. Definitely amateur. But we had a decent production budget behind it. I'd say no more than 9 people were on the set. So the 2 performers, 2 people on sound, 2 on cameras, the director, choreographer, and myself acting as tech support and gopher. There was a smell, sure. But I didn't notice it much for normal shoots. We were in an apartment with A/C and had working showers, so everyone was clean and the area we were in was well ventilated. The worst it ever got was when we were doing a piss scene and the male performer just couldn't get a good stream going. It just dribble out. So we'd cut. Have him pound a Gatorade. Take a vitamin. Run water in the background. Wait. Try again. Repeat. We did this 5 times. It took 2.5 hours. In between each take we had about 20 minutes. To reset. Get the female performer's hair redone. Makeup retouched. And the dribble dick hard again. We eventually went for a POV shot. With dribble dick supplying the audio. And the director supplying the stream from his own hose. But during all this time we're in a cramped bedroom with a woman covered in several loads of cum and piss. With extremely hot studio lights. And 7 other people all moving around and sweating. Porn is great and I had a lot of fun working and chilling with the people who make it. But it's tough and it's definitely not getting paid to have sex. I've worked on only 2 shoots where the performers actually had full-on sex from start to finish. Most of the time it's start and stop. With choreographed positions and angles. Lighting issues. Sound issues. Retakes. Bloopers. Accidental anal. Slips. Bathroom breaks. Softening erections. And personal drama. Undefined. Rates for performers varies wildly. We were a small independent team. Making content for a local adult store and a few online patrons. Our female performers were paid about 700 ish for full-on vaginal intercourse. Our male performers were paid 350 ish. Anal, BJs, etc. would add extra cost on both ends. Male performers that did gay content would get 500 ish each. Whoever bottomed generally got a bump in pay. Never more than 100. Blowjobs, handjobs, frottage, etc. generally upped the price. Men get paid less on average. Because once they pop they're done. Even if they can get hard again. We can't use them for a new scene because no one wants to see thin waterages in their porn. Women on the other hand. Hose M down. Redo the makeup. Throw some clothes on M and you can start shooting a new scene right away. It's not fair. But it's how it works. I got paid about 150 a shoot and 20 an hour for editing. I watched a vlog of a normal, non-porn actor. He said this about love scenes in regular movies. The more cozy they look, the more painful they are to shoot. Often shot on location. In small cozy rooms. Crowded with more and more tired people including the two actors. Bedclothes getting damper every minute. Cuts. Endless retakes. Forced. Unnatural body positions and so on. Basically. The same as porn but without the smell og cum. Ass and lube. So it must be true. Not a photographer but I worked for an adult company and have been on multiple gay and hetero video sets. There is more poop and blood on a porn set than you think. Also a fair amount of vomit. I was once on set for a scene that involved faking accidental anal. So much poop. Then after the performer used the bathroom for an hour of douching. The scene continued. Every few minutes a cameraman or sound guy would wipe blood from the dude's dick. They weren't willing to halt filming because they had a tight schedule and the empty mansion they were filming in had a real estate appointment meeting in it that night. Jesus hope they have good health insurance because bleeding anus can't be good. It was probably a hemorrhoid. It's usually a hemorrhoid when it's spotty. Fissures generally cause bloody poop and diarrhea. Isn't this topic wonderful? Worked on a set as security and observed that basically time is money. They want to get specific things on film and at this time photographed. That tension if things are not going smoothly or perfectly is not attractive. Production staff are simply trying to achieve all the goals and ensure they check everything off their list and one inability to deliver causes them a lot of stress. Can someone link the video of the camera operator eating a donut while filming a scene? That was what first came to my mind. I'm a photographer who has on a few occasions taken photos of porn. Usually for friends who have OnlyFans. But my story is from before I did so. A model reached out for me for a shoot. We chatted normally and talked out some minor details. Nothing explicit. Just a bit of topless stuff. Mind you, I didn't know her at all. She was a random person who reached out on Instagram. She texts me and tells me that we are going to FaceTime. At 12 a.m. I insist that we can talk tomorrow and that I'm already in bed and she persists that it's fine. I hate FaceTiming. Especially with people I don't know. Especially at midnight when I'm already cozy in bed. She calls me and is in the middle of taking a piss completely nude and drunk off her ass. I was taken aback and told her we can just talk tomorrow. She gets upset and says that we need to talk now so she can show me her body and her tattoos. She says this as she's wiping up. I was super skeeved out and hung up. Needless to say, I did not feel comfortable doing a photo shoot with her and I ghosted. Sounds like you missed out. She seems a charmer. Yep. She was probably the one. I had to shoot the ugliest couple I have ever seen. Woman looked like a 6 feet ogre and man looked like a tiny Harry Potter with a soul patch. They had zero chemistry and she kept looking at his junk and trying to make this sultry face, but it looked like she was confused and disgusted by it. They also insisted on shooting in the hot tub, but she was the exact same color as the stucco behind it. That last line has me cracking up. Backlight. We need some backlighting in here. Actually, let's just turn all the lights off. It's okay. It's artistic. I guess they get bored sometimes and fall asleep mid-shoot. This is a video of day with a porn star featuring Veronica Vane. 2:36 You can see the guy sleeping casually lol. Where do you get these videos, man? WTF? And also this was allowed on YouTube lol. /r/YouTubeities brother man. Be careful. One dive is a whole new line of recommended content on the family TV. I was the model for an act outdoor shoot and was posing on a pretty big boulder. Felt it tickling on my ass. Looking there, and there was this lizard just chilling on my butt. Was so surprised I almost jumped off the rock. The photographer was very amused. I also learned that rock climbing naked is a lot of fun. That's not my boulder. Why is IT Software's my boulder confused lizard noises? That lizard probably. But seriously. I'm glad you had fun and got the shots you needed to. I also want to try naked rock climbing now. Still warm. All good from a lizard POV. I used to shoot fetish and BDSM porn in college and for a few years after I graduated college. 2010, 16-ish. I have a degree in photography and was in Boy Scout, and I'm very good at knots, so a friend got me into it by helping tie up men and women and photographing them for her fetish site. This led to me doing tons of more work. The worst is feeder porn work. These poor women would just eat and eat on camera and then vomit and gag all over themselves. It was pretty rough stuff to photograph and film. Also, it would make me kinda of sad because these women would gain large amounts of weight quickly between each time you'd work with them, and it just didn't seem healthy. As has been said already, the worst part is the smells. Group sex scenes. And the feeder scenes, the smells were enough to make you gag sometimes. Also, if you want to make decent money, you have to do both gay and straight scenes, which as a straight male at first is really odd, but you get used to it shockingly quick. The worst part is you become kinda numb to it all when you are behind the camera. Like, you will meet your model and she will be very attractive, but as soon as you're behind the camera it becomes very much so a job and you become focused on getting a good shot and the lighting correct. The awkwardness of them being naked and masturbating or having sex in front of you disappears so quick. You sort of become numb to it all, to the point in your personal life nudity and sex doesn't affect you the same. One of the most awkward things was when models would show up with their boyfriends who would just be like really weird and awkward in the set background. Like, it would almost always be buff military or former military dudes or wannabe fighter types, and they'd stand cross-armed off to the side and being very encouraging to their girlfriends/boyfriends while watching them get peeped. I personally just always found that odd. I understand they came, I guess, to make them feel safe, but some of the weird things they'd say would always make you scratch your head. Only got came on once and it just grazed my leg. Got squirt droplets hit me a few times. Never really got involved with the scenes other than that and tying people up. Honestly, sets were much more professional than I imagined when I was younger. Most of the porn girls were not like crazy whores who wanted to peep constantly. It was literally them turning it on and off for the camera. I worked with a smaller budget company, so I never saw fluffers, and I honestly question if they really exist. It would be common to see the guys sort of just casually be jerking off between shots to keep it up. Which is sort of weird. You'd be talking to them about asserting a shot up and they'd just be jerking it the whole time. Pay was pretty good. Usually on set days was about $60 an hour, paid out in 4-hour blocks, so even if you worked 6 hours you'd get paid for 8, which was cool. You're an independent contractor slash freelance even if you tend to just work for one company. I'm mostly out of that world now with the occasional shooting for some girls who I've stayed in contact with to shoot for their OnlyFans pages. The phenomena you describe reminds me of technical directing a multi-camera interview. At the end, someone could ask what was discussed and I'd have no idea. Because I was so focused on working the switcher and calling out direction to camera operators. That's kind of like the work I do now and same. I produce for company that does how-to classes and talks on stuff in the textile industry and I barely pay attention to what's going on since I'm so focused on running the switcher and cameras at the same time. I don't shoot porn or even erotic, but I am a photographer who shoots a lot of art nudes and my models range from first-time models who only shoot fully clothed to people who shoot porn. Before every shoot I give the model a safety talk, in which I say that I won't touch them, that I'll show them every shot I take, and tell them that if anything is making them uncomfortable I want them to speak up. I once had a model interrupt that talk to say my job is mainly shooting bondage and fetish porn. There is nothing that you are going to say or do that will make me uncomfortable. That felt awkward to me. I thought about it for a second and told her that I did not care what she did at other times. I was going to treat her like I treated every other model. And then I went on with my model safety talk. I have to admit that I am always a bit nervous working with a model who is new to me. Her saying that actually made me relax a bit during the shoot. I'm glad you continued your safety talk. It's not just for the model, but also for yourself, so you know that they know how you work and you yourself can feel more safe with them. Former porn producer here. I've mentioned stories here on Reddit that were more sad than awkward. And though I didn't run the camera all the time, there was awkwardness abound. During setups it's common knowledge that the guy needs to either start getting hard or remain hard. In straight porn the woman will intimately interact with the guy to keep those juices flowing. In gay porn back in 03 the guys were straight, so they would watch straight porn. Or sometimes just stand there and jack off. On more than one occasion the guy would be jacking off and causally look at me and say sup while I was working. You can make the argument that he was probably gay, but I was the least attractive man on that set. On a straight porn set the guy was plowing the woman missionary style in between setups. The woman wanted a blanket from her car, but needed to tell me where the keys to her car were. So while getting fpeeped she was like, it's in my gym bag, side pocket. I once opened a dishwasher in a porn studio to get a plate and found the whole top rack filled with dildos. They were used by performers doing live cam sessions. Some guy came up and was like, there's my favorite, and took a blue dildo from the rack. Devin Davis, the now deceased wife of Jonathan Davis of Korn, was best friends with Jill Kelly back when I worked for her. They did a photo shoot where they were eating each other's pussies, like 5 feet from my desk. Devin kept her wine glass on my desk and kept walking up to me like, you're getting hard, huh? I really wasn't and just wanted to work without causing any waves since Jill was my boss. She later got mad because she demanded I picked up dog's peep from Jill's dog and I told her no. On a gay porn set this 5'9" guy who had a massive 12 dick was plowing this guy hard. Our set photographer, who was gay, was like, I took a dick that big once and I got dizzy. Sure enough the scene stops and the bottom went to stand up and took a second step saying, man, I'm a bit dizzy. I guess some of those aren't really awkward. But the most awkward thing on every porn set is the whole crew sitting in silence watching a guy jack off. He announces when he's about to come and the crew and woman/man swing into action to get the pop shot. The most awkward thing on every porn set is the whole crew sitting in silence watching a guy jack off. He announces when he's about to come and the crew and woman/man Swing into action to get the pop shot. This is like that public speaking and suddenly you're naked nightmare. Only about 1,000 times worse. There was an AMA on this a while back. You may be able to find something there. I believe the cameraman was doing VR porn at the time or something related to that. Actual pornographer here. I work for an independent studio in Los Angeles called Perv City and I shoot pro-am scenes of my husband for our site Slut Inspection. Most awkward on a professional set was when we were shooting a normal MILF boy-girl scene, no anal, and the male talent fingered the MILF so hard that she speep all over the couch. I love my job. I love creating porn. I really enjoy working with most of the people in the porn industry. I just wish we would do a better job to get rid of the predators. AMA. Dude, I went to university, had a job working as cameraman for some sleazy Euro porn guy in the 90s. This was long before porn was easily available on the internet. This guy had multiple times he was hit with cum by accident. So lots of perks is what you're saying? Jerks. Not me, and he was a lighting guy. Not a photographer. He worked with Ron Jeremy. Said the guy smelled like cabbage and had a reputation for not paying the crew. He got boned out of his money and went to Ron's house to get his money. Ron argued why he shouldn't get paid and finally paid up. He said the set was generally pretty sad. Lots of cocaine and crying. Set always smelled terrible even without Ron Jeremy in the room. He said he was pretty celibate for a while after working on the porn set. My uncle's best mate used to have his own photography business he stopped about 8 years ago. He always mentioned a story where a woman approached him and asked him to take photos of her so she could give the album to her husband for his birthday. Fully naked pictures of her using sex toys and so on. Anyway, she'd apparently been using a dildo on her ass and she was around 2 hours into the shoot. She finished with the dildo and was spreading her cheeks when a little nugget of POO came sliding out. Which just so happened to be caught on camera with her showing a face of absolute horror. She got changed and left and paid for the pictures several weeks later. Except the one of the Great Escape. I never did see those pictures so can't say for certain. If you play in Speep's house, don't be surprised when he shows up. Relevant username. I've shot a lot of fetish and boudoir. And for the most part, it's like shooting anything else. My mind gets focused on light, shadows, composition, etc. Rather than look. There's someone's gaping butthole. Shooting adult content is a lot less glamorous than people think. I've had past partners ask to bring the camera into the bedroom. It's fun. But if you're going to get good content, it's not super sexy. There's a lot of starting and stopping to adjusting lights, set up timers, etc. Well, there's that one video of the cameraman that got hit with some of the money shot in the face by complete accident. This was my first thought. I believe it was from a movie/sketch. What movie? I want to see the money shot. Pulp Fiction. It's the scene where John Travolta's talking to the black guy riding in the back of the car. I was filming a scene with 2 girls beeping. It's not uncommon at all to kneel/sit/lay on the bed to get better shots. One girl ended up squirting more than I've seen in my 30 years as a lesbian and it went all over me. Not only that, but I had to stay laying in the puddle for a few minutes before I could switch angles. I thought you had to bleed for your art. Not soak. Back when I was a broke out of work photojournalist, I would take all sorts of photo gigs to make ends meet, including some adult content. After one of the jobs, the model/client, her makeup girl, and I went to a diner to go over the photos and decide which ones I would touch up. She'd been fasting to look skinnier for the shoot, so she wasn't too picky on where we stopped. When we got there, she practically ran to the corner booth before ordering a huge burger. There were well over 1,000 shots, so going through them took a while. Surprisingly, our waiter was incredibly attentive the entire time despite us sitting there well after the food had been finished. I don't think our waters or coffees were ever less than half full, and he kept reassuring us that we could stay as long as we needed. It was almost annoying how he kept checking on us every few minutes. Once we had narrowed it down to a couple of dozen photos to be touched up, we paid the tab and got up to leave. That's when I noticed the giant mirror right behind the booth. Every time the waiter came over, he got an explicit eyeful of the woman sitting next to me on my laptop screen. Thankfully, the model wasn't exactly bashful about her body and found it hilarious. Former studio manager, we did a few things, including porn. Mostly a professional, maybe jaded work environment, so nothing really was out of the ordinary for us. However, there was one performer who used to take a break from filming at 5 p.m. to receive a phone call from her prison-bound boyfriend. He was a convicted pedophile who had groomed her since she was 14. A real piece of speep, who had used his fame to take advantage of dozens of vulnerable women and girls. Very uncomfortable. Stays with me nearly a decade later. Edit: I am not sure how happy I am revealing his name, let's just say he took the last train home. Explaining the weird stuff like, okay, we have line you two up so that she can swallow you whole, like a python. Or we need to stick these tracking dots to you so the software can put in the extra breasts. Or okay, you have make out with the mannequin. Be careful not touch the back of her head, it will knock the camera and mic loose, and so on. Honestly, since I did the effects stuff, my mind was on how to get it done. Shooting porn is not sexy. It is work. You learn detachment quickly. Helps I wasn't into anything I was shooting to. I don't do it anymore. Right around the last economic crash, no one was buying. And models were harder to find, so it tipped over to just not worth it. I sometimes think about shooting again. But I have none of the resources anymore. No talent pool, studio, gear or anything. But I bet I could hit movie quality with the stuff out now. Professional photographer. I used to take photos of sex dolls. The real expensive ones that cost thousands of dollars. I had my studio in my garage because my house was too small for any other room. It was the middle of summer and it was starting to get hot in the garage. Since I was alone, I undressed completely because I was just sweating profusely. These dolls are not easy to position. Their bones are metal and are very heavy. Think an actual girl would at least help you move correctly. Well, as I was grabbing one and moving it into position, my wife walks in the garage, to which I screamed, "This isn't what it looks like." She knew I was photographing them naked, but she just couldn't stop laughing. I worked as a photographer on porn sets shortly back in 2011. It's like any other job. Nothing awkward happened during my year. Most sets have 5 to 12 people. It's fairly professional. I try to do the best to take the best angles of the girls. Work was steady. But I made roughly 30,000, which was considered low back in 2011. I ended up freelancing and starting my own business. A lot of the girls who are traveling strippers supported me early on. This Reddit post is going to make one of those videos recorded with a robotic voice. I know. I took a job during college that required me to film fisting at a hotel. The smell was the most putrid, horrible smell you can imagine. I only did it twice. Because the last time I was hired, about midway through the shoot, Apparently there was not enough lube applied to the receiver's jelly donut. The sheer force of the fist, which actually looks more like punching a wet paper bag than some delicate procedure, caused a rip in this guy's asshole, and we had to rush him to the hospital in my car. There was all kinds of fluid leaking onto my back seat. Some of it looked clear and some it was blood. Never again. Not even for what they were paying me. What do they pay to film ripping assholes? When I was 18, I started shooting porn for the owner of our local sex toy store chain. I answered an ad on Craigslist. I was shooting a scene of him and his girlfriend, and he nicked the inside of his dick on her tooth in a hardcore blowjob scene. Shot blood like a water pistol with every heartbeat for about a minute or so. He was 50 or so, and we shot with his 18Y/0 girlfriend, who I knew from a different school and had basically run away from home. She lived with him and was kept in a strict BDSM relationship, wearing a collar that purposely limited head movement 24/7. She took care of his kids in between shooting dildo scenes with me. Totally healthy everything. Another time we hired a random guy by putting a sign in his toy store with a picture of his girlfriend and the W caption, "You wanna peep this?" Who showed up to the hotel. Couldn't get hard, completely normal. Performance pressure is a thing, then drank an entire fifth of rum in 10 minutes. Tried to do it soft. He got so sad but couldn't show it. So then he drove off, which the producer allowed him to do. This was a truly terrible experience for me. The way sex can be so degrading to everyone involved if it's controlled by toxicity and SPEEPT values. So now I make ethical porn. That shows how sex can be lovely and consensual and not incredibly abusive. Truly awesome. Support your local ethical porn makers, y'all. 3. Organic. Free-range porn. Ethically produced and sourced. When they can't ejaculate, you cover the girl in Cetaphil or pina colada mix. I still can't drink pina colada. Also, the amount of girls that don't wipe their asses properly is astounding. I am constantly having to tell girls to use baby wipes if they speep. Some still don't get it or are too high on Xanax to comprehend it. So you have to wipe their beeping asses. If the girl is especially awful in behavior, you'll let her have poopy butthole shots. I hadn't really considered working in porn before this comment. And thanks to your comment, I will continue to not consider working in porn. Reddit always wakes up horny. I'm not a pro smut photographer, but I do bondage photography as a hobby. I don't think I've ever really had an awkward moment. The models are always professional and shoots are always done in about 2 hours. As for what I feel when I film, focused. Mostly. Yes. I'm definitely into bondage. But I never really get turned on while filming or taking photos. I'm too focused by the rigging. Getting the lighting right. Getting the angles right. Giving directions to the model and making sure she's as comfortable as possible. It's more of a creative outlet for me than wank material. I've seen a video of somebody speaking about his time as a porn cameraman. The smell was generally bad. I mean, they're beeping for hours in a closed room. Then, when you're filming from just behind the balls/ass of the dude when he beeps her/him is the most degrading. He said. Because you're filming a dude's asshole and balls going back and forth right in front of you. It's probably also the smelliest place in the room. Came for some entertaining porn bloopers and instead got 500 comments on how to clean my ass. Reddit really takes anal seriously. My dad's in the industry as an erotic photographer. Sometimes stepping close to the line to straight up porn. I help him out sometimes during shoots. They are a lot of fun most of the time. Everyone is really chill and cool to talk to. He offers courses for other photographers who are trying to start out in the industry. These often take place over the span of a few days in an exotic setting. For example, on islands like Mallorca or Ibiza. We often had run-ins with the police from different countries because tourists called them lol. He often gets criticism. People call him out for objectifying women and such. And yet, the industry is brutal and some photographers are assholes. This is why my dad has a moral codex written down on his website and online profiles. Which is something that, surprisingly, not many photographers have. Some modeling agencies are straight up awful. Going as far as only allowing the models to eat a certain amount of food per day, the only allowed snack during shoots. For a former model, he had some shootings where Tic Tacs or to restrict their personal life, preventing them from having boyfriends. Controlling their social media. Which is why my dad nowadays only works with freelancing models. Both male and female. You often hear stories about photographers and models peeping behind the scenes. This is true. To an extent. Some do it and fully embrace it. However, not without consent from the models. My dad sees his work more as an art form than a pure sex thing. Most of his work is pretty artistic or provocative. Imagine nuns having lesbian sex using crosses as toys, for example. Or severely over/underweight models in stereotypically sexy poses. People often ask me if I believe him when he says that he'd never touch a model. And yet, I do. I have so many stories and anecdotes to tell. Ranging from funny to tragic and creepy. If there's a demand, I could tell some. Undefined. I'm not a porn photographer. But I'm a commercial photographer. We photograph for fitness brands, and the models usually wear only those invisible panties and no bra when they are between outfits. Believe it or not, it's not a sexual situation in any way. I mean, it's more interesting than when we shoot the glove catalog every 2 years. But not any more sexual. I have shot a few boudoir parties back when they were a thing. And those were a little more sexual. Since the costumers were often buzzed and a little horny. But it was still a professional situation. If anybody is thinking of having sexy photos taken of themselves, I highly recommend doing it with a small group of your friends. The stylists and the photographer can often work for less money per client. Because you're using all of the time you would normally be waiting. Sorry if I ruined anybody's fantasy. By the way, I was once doing a shoot for my cousin's company. My family has been heavy in the porn industry for a long time, ever since we fled from Nazi Germany and came to the United States. There was a shoot I was working on about a year and a half ago where one of the male actors comes in somehow impeded. Not sure if it was cocaine or if he was just drunk. My cousin decided to start the shoot anyway. But the guy just kept getting too rough with the girls. It was really awkward. At one point the male actor started talking loudly about politics between shoots. He's a big supporter of the Orange Cheeto Hitler, evidently. So at that point I took my cousin aside and told him we can't work with someone like that and we have to get rid of him. We ended up having to reschedule the shoot. But the girls were relieved they wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. He got angry and violent. So we had our security guy throw him out and the girls were clapping when the dude was finally gone. Cost us about 10 grand. But it was worth it. The reshoot ended taking place next week. Halfway through I expected a 350 joke.